Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the Goela House of Finance. और आज we have with us PG. Yeah. So his entire team very lovingly and dearly calls him PG, Pratik Gauri, but अब से हम भी PG ही बुलाने वाले हैं. Now, what does PG do? He is a co-founder of Fiverr, and Fiverr, by the way, is a blockchain ecosystem that focuses on sustainable development and technology innovation. I know सुनने में बड़ा complicated लग रहा है. Well, इसी को तो आज easy करने वाले हैं. What is blockchain? How does it help the environment? What are they working on? And basically ना इसमें हम entrepreneurship के बारे में भी सीखेंगे. That what can we learn from him as a startup entrepreneur? तो दोस्त मज़ा बहुत आने वाला है, वो तो आपको पता ही है. तो किस चीज़ की वेट कर रहे हो? पुट ऑन योर हेडफोन्स, आराम से बैठो, मैं शुरू कर रहा हूँ. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you today in the Goela House of Finance is Pratik Gauri. Pratik, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much, Harsh. Pleasure being with you.
Pratik, I have a lot of questions. ठीक है, उसमें we'll dive into it हल्के हल्के करके. But सबसे पहला, I saw that you're from IFT, ठीक है, Delhi, कुतुब मीनार institution area. Love that place. Tankus के पराठे. Tell me what's your relation with that? Was Tankus के पराठे was the always the place that I could find you when you were in college?
Well, one of the places, and there's another place which is right. So I did my MBA from IFT, so right behind IFT, there's another place called Shankar Ka Dhaba. So that's also one of the places I used to hang out. So if you were to chat with me at 5 in the night, then probably because that was the only dhaba that was open. But in the day, it was the front of IFT. So I was basically, I was either at one of these dhabas because that's where the meetings used to happen, right? In my MBA days. So यार वहीं से we created a lot of business ideas. वहीं पे बैठ के while over chai and paratha we launched businesses. We failed some were successes. So yeah, it's kind of close to my heart because I spent 2 years there like regular. So yeah.
And which year was this?
So I did my MBA between 2014 and 16. So I graduated in 16. So yeah, 2 years, 14 to 16.
ठीक है. So you were into entrepreneurship वो था मुझे ऐसे लग रहा है because just seeing you as a person and just seeing your profile वो अंदर कीड़ा था entrepreneurship का starting से, right? So how did blockchain come? How was the discovery of blockchain?
So I'll tell you. So yeah, so basically I started my first company when I was 16. So yeah, I'm 30. I just turned 31. So 15 saal ho gaye. And when I started my first company, it was an edutech company. And I sold it when I was 20. So then I started my second company, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So built 8 companies in the last 15 years. And all my companies have been in the space of fifth industrial revolution, a concept that I started promoting long back to prove the thesis that you can make money if you do good to the world. Because, when I was starting my journey, I saw either every entrepreneur is hell bent on just making profits, or there is another parallel world which is operating in a silo where people are, the rich kids or the wealthy families are talking about charity. But I did not see anybody talking about working at the intersection of both, meaning working in the middle where you actually make money, but at the same time, you do good to the world, you help people, you enable financial inclusion, you solve social problems. It could be, climate or water or education. So I did not find a lot of people doing that. So I started working at the intersection. So all my 8 businesses that I've launched before the current one I run, Fire, have been in the space of fifth industrial revolution. And, when I was running those businesses, I was able to kind of impact tens of millions of people and generate tens of millions of dollars, and was able to prove the thesis that you can actually make money if you do good to the world. So that's my thesis, which I was able to prove. But I found myself at an inflection point, when COVID jab aaya, so I found myself at an inflection point where I thought, how do I expedite progress from the fourth industrial revolution to the fifth? And how do I basically impact a billion people quickly, like impact a billion people positively in a quick way, so that we can achieve SDGs by 2030 and achieve the global goals, solve social problems, help the bottom billion. How do we do it? And that's when I launched Fire with 2 of my other co-founders. And it's, again, the name Fire is fifth industrial revolution. So it's the same concept that we've carried forward, but the difference being now Web3, we've built an infrastructure because, the end goal was clear: to impact a billion people positively. How do you reach there quickly was I was trying to find. The last 10 years, 15 years, I ran different businesses around STGs. So health tech, climate tech, edu tech, renewables, solar. Those have been my sweet spots of working. But I wasn't able to impact a billion people. And I thought, how do you do it? So I got to know that if I work at the intersection of blockchain and sustainability and launch a startup, launch a company at the intersection of this, it's very quick to scale because it's an infrastructure and it gives the power back to the community. So this is the only technology in the whole world which we have witnessed as humans, which gives the power to the community to control their finances, control their data. So there are about 1.5, 2 billion people who don't have access to banking, who don't have access to credit. But if you use blockchain as a technology, you can basically get them into the system. And there are about so many women don't work. They are left out of the financial system because they're not contributing to the economy because we've left them out. If you want to grow as a whole, as an ecosystem, whether, and let's talk about India as a market, if you want to grow the GDP, you, to be honest, you can't do it without women. You can't just do it with a men dominant
Pratik,
economy.
we will come to blockchain, right? But there is one core issue. Core issue is that a lot of people who are starting off, right? And a lot of people who aspire to be in your shoes because you've done so well. So one common question is that key, obviously when you start entrepreneurship, there's a motive that you, and this is very interesting fact you mentioned, that rich, they're only focusing on duration, right? The poor section of people, the bottom billion, as you mentioned, they're only working towards money, and you hit the intersection, which is true. But एक आदमी कॉलेज में बोलता है यार कि मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ता है कि मैं सोसाइटी का भला करूं, मुझे पैसे कमाने. सो एवरीवन फील्स यार एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप अल्टीमेटली पैसे की बात है. एंड ये कि आई वांट टू डू समथिंग वेल फॉर सोसाइटी इज जस्ट व्हाट साउंड्स मेक पीपल साउंड्स, मतलब make people sound cool, right? What would you say to that 20-year-old who's thinking this? कि ऐसा क्यों? क्योंकि every great entrepreneur has an objective behind it, which is much larger than just money. So what would you say to him?
Correct. So yeah, I'll tell you. So what, for instance, I'll talk about, what I did as, in my company. So when you think about, so see, money is a byproduct. If your core focus as a 20-year-old is to make just money from entrepreneurship, trust me, वो नहीं होगा. Let me be very blunt, वो नहीं होने वाला. ठीक है? Legit business से अगर आपका गोल सिर्फ पैसा बनाना है, it's you not going to reach there. But if you impact people, it's 100%, it's inevitable कि पैसा बनेगा. You will make money if you focus on doing good. That is the thesis I was trying to promote. अभी हमने क्या किया है, blockchain में भी we use a consensus. What we have done is, if you do good to the world, you are financially rewarded. See, humans are accustomed to work only when there is financial incentive. ठीक है, बिना पैसे के. So what we did was we linked both of them. Now, what we did, if you suppose you are using geothermal energy as a node in my blockchain, I am using coal. Boss, if you use geothermal, you get more money. You get financially rewarded by the consensus. So now what that does is you are making money for doing good to the world. So as a 20-year-old, if you work at the intersection of profits and purpose, see, paisa is one side and purpose is the other, then you are going to make you're going to create value. See, how does money come? Money is just a financial system, but the money thing happens only when you provide value to the consumer. If you're selling a juice, right? If you're selling a juice, if the consumer doesn't like your juice, you're not going to make money. So if you launch a juice brand thinking, boss, I'm going to just make money, वो नहीं होने वाला है यार. Let's put it that way.
Have you experienced this? कभी you've done so many startups, कभी ऐसा हुआ है कि that you have seen someone, या you have yourself कि यार मुझे पैसे कमाने, but it hasn't worked. That's why you've come to the realization. ऐसा कुछ हुआ है in your experience?
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So my first startup, right? I basically look. I have been a very strong proponent that if you are running a business, if you are working 20 hours a day, whatever you're working, you definitely should make money. I am a big proponent, but I'm not saying that that should be your only goal, because the experiences I have had in my life, and the experiences, if you see Elon Musk or anybody who've been my inspirations personally, if you see, they created value. Tesla created value. That's why their stocks went up during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So see, he's the wealthiest guy. So he made money. But if you look at Elon Musk saying, boss, he's just the richest guy of the world, you're not going to reach there. It's impossible to reach there, because you also have to see the other side. How did he reach there? That's what people forget. जितने भी 20-year-olds हैं, what they think is they want quick ways to make money
Yeah.
without thinking कि वो बन कैसे रहा है. You need to get
Hmm.
deeper into if somebody is running an Ola, if somebody has founded. See, Ola solved such a huge problem, right?
Such a huge problem.
With
Yeah.
talk about Ritesh from Oyo, he solved a basic problem that was there were not many infrastructure or hotels for people who couldn't afford to go to a 5-star hotel. That's the basic problem he solved, right? And when he solved that problem, consumer loved it. Consumer,
Yeah.
he's not going to make, Oyo is not going to make money until the consumers adopt it.
I think
So
in
you
Oyo,
can
the consumer as well as the small hotels, because they had no platform to market themselves, were
market
them
themselves.
perfect. It was a win-win-win situation for everyone.
It was a blend. So it was
Yeah.
it's a marketplace which basically was a win-win-win for all stakeholders. Let's put it that way. So what I'm
100%.
saying is, if you launch a business as a 20-year-old and you create a product which is going to be beneficial to your stakeholders, which can be your B2B, it can be your customers, meaning B2C, it can be the end consumer, it should be the end consumer, and even if it's a government, it can be anything. If all of these 3 or 4 stakeholders that you're working with are happy with your product, it's inevitable that you're going to make money. Let's put it that way. So
Yeah.
your first goal should be to make your stakeholders happy and make your
Yeah.
stakeholders satisfied. And as we say in marketing jargons, put customer first, what Kotler says. So if you do that, then you are going to make money. But if you launch a business thinking this is my goal, I don't care about any other stuff, you are not going to make money. Let's put it that way.
Very true. Very true. I think, as a matter of fact, because if someone is only running after money, no, he will do one thing, then he'll jump to another boat because everything takes time to mature. But if you actually have a vision that I want to solve this problem, then you create legendary stuff, right? Tab legends are created. And you're right. I think this is something that one has to experience, only then he understands. Now,
Yeah.
Pratik, you went to the blockchain space, and that too, not अब now blockchain होता क्या है? Everyone thinks blockchain अच्छा cryptocurrency. It's a technology platform which is much bigger than that. And you're right, it can solve so many issues. Administrative issues in a country can be solved by blockchain also, right?
Correct.
So, first, what is blockchain? Just to for our young investor audience to understand in simple words. Second, key, what is sustainable blockchain? I heard your TEDx talk also, where you were talking about this. So, take us through that.
So look, blockchain, think of it as a decentralized ledger technology. Okay, where the system, okay, the whole system is run by several computers, which we call nodes.
ठीक
तो
है.
एक decentralized technology platform जिसमें पूरा system अलग अलग computers पे run कर रहा है. It is decentralized, so that's why we need different computers in different places. That we call nodes. Now, any transaction that happens on the chain, meaning like a chain of blocks, anything that happens on the chain is permanent and uneditable. So it's immutable. Agar today, if I'm giving an interview or I'm doing whatever, if I record it on the chain, against a timestamp, I can't edit it. Okay? So, and to basically record that particular piece, it has to be validated by 51% of the nodes. When they agree, then only they can enter in the ledger, which I call the distributed ledger technology. Then only the ledger entry happens, and this is what we call consensus. So this is basically a blockchain. So it's like a blocks, it's a chain of blocks, and to basically run by several computers, decentralized technology run by several computers, which we call nodes.
So suppose agar if I say कि I bought this, I did this transaction, मैंने डाला. Once it is, फिर काफी सारे computer servers होंगे which will verify that कि हाँ done. After that verification, एक बार वो block बन गया, it cannot be removed, right?
It cannot be removed, or 51% of the nodes have to agree when you're doing a transaction. Then only it will be entered in the ledger. That's why it's decentralized now, because even if 20% agree and 80% don't agree, and that's why, for instance, the blockchain that we have, I'm a sustainability pe jab aunga, so I'll talk about what we've built. But if you talk about any other blockchain, whether it's an Ethereum or a Solana, they use a consensus, which is basically the way entries happen in the ledger. तो जो 51% नोड्स मैंने आपको बताया, वो 51% of the total nodes जितने भी हैं, the way they transact, the way they are rewarded, or the way you get as a validator on the chain, the way you can validate a block or a node, that's called a consensus. That's how the technology works. Now there have
Fair
been
enough.
two types of technologies which have been very prevalent. एक होता है proof of work, एक होता है proof of stake. अब proof of work में क्या होता है, if you and I are trying to validate a transaction on the chain जो मैंने अभी बताया, and if you spend more computational power and I spend less computational power, you get to validate the block, which means of course you make money and you get to validate the block. अब इसके अंदर प्रॉब्लम क्या है, प्रॉब्लम ये है कि it can never be sustainable because अगर if you are spending more computational power, you can never be energy efficient, है ना? And if you're not energy efficient, you can never be environmental friendly. So that is why this consensus can never become a sustainable blockchain. Now there is another consensus which is very prevalent. So दो हैं, एक है proof of work जो मैंने अभी बताया, then the second is proof of stake.
Of stake.
So proof of stake में क्या होता है कि if you and I are trying to validate a block and you stake more cryptocurrency or you have more money than me, then the block goes to you क्योंकि you are able to stake more. अब इसके अंदर प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि financial inclusion कभी नहीं हो सकता because it takes you back to the traditional finance problems that the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer.
Done. Sure.
तो अब what we did is we've created the world's first sustainable blockchain. अब सस्टेनेबल ब्लॉकचेन क्या होता है कि हमने जो कंसेंसस बनाया है, इट्स आवर पेटेंटेड टेक्नोलॉजी, इट्स कॉल्ड प्रूफ ऑफ बेनिफिट. Now what proof of benefit does is, if you, for instance, we have basically created the world's first mathematical model which measures sustainability and rewards stakeholders basis their sustainability score. So it's a weighted average which takes into account the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and incorporates 650 environmental social governance indicators. अब इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि if you and I are trying to validate a block and you use geothermal energy and I use coal, so you will get rewarded for that, which basically means we are financially rewarding for sustainable practices. अब इसके थ्रू हमने एक सस्टेनेबल ब्लॉकचेन बना दिया, because if you are not sustainable then you don't end up making money, which takes us back to my thesis that I started promoting, that you can only make money if you do good to the world, which basically is going to transition the world from the current age of fourth industrial revolution, which has been following a for profit paradigm, to the age of fifth industrial revolution, which is going to follow a for benefit paradigm. So ideally हम क्या कर रहे हैं, we are transitioning the world from for profit to for benefit by a sustainable blockchain, which is a Web3 infrastructure.
This is, how did you come up with this? This is actually brilliant. It's again like what we mentioned about Oyo. It's a win-win-win situation. It's a win-win-win situation here also, wherein it's actually a person is getting rewarded for something that is doing well. And you're right. So how did this come up? I'm very interested to know how did this idea come up?
Okay, so I was telling you, right? I basically made last 8 startups. I was able to impact tens of millions of people, generate tens of millions of dollars. So I was trying to impact 1 billion people positively. And I thought, yeah, we need an infrastructure to do it. Bina infrastructure ke nahi hoga, so we need to integrate blockchain. So I, with my other co-founder, his name is also Pratik. I call him PD. So we were, we were in Gurgaon at this restaurant called Apni Chai. So this happened over chai actually. So it was a tissue paper that we were writing कि we हम ये चाहते हैं कि पूरा वर्ल्ड ऐसे डायरेक्शन में मूव करे जहां पे लोग people make money only if they do good. Because without financial incentivization तो ये transition हो नहीं सकता है. If we want this to happen, we would want people to actually make money only if they do good to the world. Now if we want that to happen, we need an infrastructure. And infrastructure के ऊपर जब वो बनाएंगे decentralized protocols और जब वो consensus से abide करेंगे तो they will actually end up making money only if they're doing good to the world. और जब ये पूरे सारे decentralized protocols करेंगे और सारा world ये करेगा, तब पूरा वर्ल्ड एक फॉर प्रॉफिट से फॉर बेनिफिट की तरफ मूव करेगा, जहां पे हम बिलियन लोगों को इम्पैक्ट कर पाएंगे. 1.5-2 बिलियन लोग जो रह गए हैं फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम से, उनको वी कैन पुट देम बैक इनटू द सिस्टम. वी कैन अचीव जेंडर इक्वालिटी. सो बेसिकली जितनी भी प्रॉब्लम्स है, वेदर इट इज सैनिटेशन, क्लीन वाटर, एजुकेशन फॉर द पुअर, ये सब हो सकता है. इसके लिए हमें एक इंफ्रा बनाना है. नाउ एक इंफ्रा इथेरियम और सोलाना ने ऑलरेडी बना रखा था ब्लॉकचेन में, तो वी थॉट कि ये तो सस्टेनेबिलिटी को केटर नहीं कर रहे हैं. सो बिग प्रॉब्लम in the blockchain space, जिसकी वजह से शायद से अभी भी पूरे वर्ल्ड ने इसको adopt नहीं किया है. People know it's a great technology, but if you see the adoption is not where it should be, right? The governments, Fortune 500 companies, family offices, जब तक ये large stakeholders adopt नहीं करेंगे, तब तक you can't impact a billion people. So you need their support, right? So how do we make a blockchain? ये हमारा आइडिया था जो हम अपनी चाय पे बात कर रहे थे. वी वर हैविंग चाय, वी वर डिस्कसिंग ऑन अ टिश्यू पेपर. हमने आइडिया लिखा था ये कि वी विल क्रिएट अ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, वेब3 एक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाएंगे जो सस्टेनेबल होगा और वो रिवॉर्ड करेगा कंसेंसस से, फाइनेंशियली रिवॉर्ड करेगा एनीबडी हु डज गुड टू द वर्ल्ड. Any stakeholder who does good to the will reward them financially, and this is the only way we can impact a billion people. And this is the way we're going to build a blockchain. So that's why we built a layer 1 blockchain, and that's how the idea came across, and that's how we built our own consensus. Then of course there was a lot of research that we did. We came up with the mathematical score to measure sustainability, to reward people on basis of the actions that they're going to be doing on the blockchain. So we did all of that. Of course that took a lot of time. We wrote a lot of research papers. So the first thing was, when the idea came in, we started doing research. So we hired some very good researchers. We did research. Then after that, we started, once the research papers were out, then we started building technology. So then we built technology. So that's how, and right now we are at the testnet phase. So हमने testnet launch कर दिया है, and people are already using the platform. Now we're going to launch our mainnet, which is the final version of the product at the end of this year, and anybody can use the platform. And
so where do you see this 5 years later?
So 5 years later, so basically I'll tell you where we want to be. So like Web 1 was pretty much curated by Google.
Yeah.
Because Google was the early player. Web 2 was pretty much curated by Facebook. So we want to be the Google of Web 3, where we will build infrastructure. But the difference will be that the world will not only be abundant. So people who will work with us will not only just make money, but so basically they will also contribute to the good of the world, and they will solve social problems because they're getting financial incentives for it. So when the whole world does it, in 5 years from now, we will not only be one of the largest players of Web3, but we will be able to move the world to a for benefit economy, help solve all social problems that continue to exist, whether it's water or whether it's sanitation or whether it's climate, whether it's renewables, whether it's solar, whether it's education. We will end up solving all those problems and impact more than a billion people positively, enable financial inclusion for 1.5 billion people who've been left out of the traditional finance system. So that's our end goal. And we want to be the default ecosystem, default blockchain ecosystem for any business which wants to enter Web3 and work at the intersection of blockchain and sustainability. So that's where we want to go.
Wow, I have no doubt कि ये होने वाला है. This is so exciting. बताओ. So प्रतीक, एक क्वेश्चन मेरा हमेशा था कि अब my personal bias is always towards equity. I just love stock market. So Web 3.0 के आने से, how do you think it will get different for people who are get into stock markets, who are investors? उन पे क्या difference आएगा? What do you feel?
So see, I basically think that, when currently, if you talk about NFTs or if you talk about cryptocurrencies, see, blockchain is a technology. It's a Web3 technology. People often confuse between blockchain and cryptocurrency, but I think we have addressed that already. It's very different. So we are a Web3 technology company. Now, when you talk about cryptocurrency, for instance, in terms of investments, I think people are still scared to get into it. And it's very valid. I think until it is regulated, it cannot be adopted by the masses, and it should not be allowed to adopt it. And I'll tell you why, because, if it's unregulated, don't think about, when I launch any business or whenever I think of solving a problem, I never focus on the 1% people who are the wealthy or who are the rich. I want to focus on 99% of the people, who are the bottom billion. If you look at that particular segment, who are now continuing to adopt and who are continuing to get into stock markets, because stock markets are very regulated. So they are very rarely you will find frauds happening in the stock market. But if you are investing in cryptocurrency, since there is no central authority, there is no regulation, legislation, regulation. I mean, we are in the gray area where we are continuing to adopt and continuing. So until the government comes up with a regulation,
प्रतीक, जैसे when you say regulation, अब पहले तो क्या था कि there was so much confusion कि crypto की जो income होगी, how to even, there was not even a taxation system for it, right? Government has addressed cryptocurrency by at least putting a taxation system. So when
30%.
you say regulated, you mean something जैसे a body like SEBI should be built around crypto, something like that?
Correct. Exactly what I meant. So abhi kya hai, see yaar, if you are basically transacting, if some fraud happens with you, who are you going to report it to? You have no authority to report it to. And we are the privileged people who still have contacts. You can call me up. I can call 100 people and say, this is what happened to me. Can you help me out? And I'm sure 100 people will help me. But that's not how the world works, right? The 99% of the people. So until a SEBI kind of body comes to regulate, I don't think it should be. It's going to be very. It's going to be adopted and shouldn't be adopted, because
But
if it's adopted,
wouldn't the main purpose be just a lot of people are pro crypto and Bitcoin, blockchain, because they feel that it's decentralized, right? That's one of the biggest advantages. So don't you think that can become contradictory if
no,
everybody
currently,
comes?
even if okay, so even if you park your money, for instance, on a cryptocurrency exchange, isn't that centralized? Because there is an owner for the exchange, right? So
Yeah.
if you park your money in a decentralized wallet, that's a different case. But if you park your money in a centralized exchange, it's still centralized. But what I mean to say is, the technology will still continue to be decentralized, because the blockchain is supposed to be a distributed ledger technology. It will always be decentralized, and you can reap all the benefits of it. What I mean by that, what I mean is, it should be regulated that if some fraud happens, okay, you need to be able to go to some person or some authority and
To
say
report
that
it. Hmm.
this is the problem I'm facing.
Yeah.
Can you solve this problem? Until you solve this, it's impossible to get it adopted. That's all I'm saying. I am a pro. I love decentralization, because that's why the technology is amazing. It should be decentralized, because decentralization, okay, let me tell you this way. Let me put it this way. Why is decentralization so helpful? It is helpful because it gives power back to the community. You control your data, you control your finances, correct? That's why it's amazing. But
True.
imagine if the fraud happens to you, then what? Then it basically doesn't solve any problem. So currently, there are so many people who witness so many frauds. So until there is a legislation to tackle those frauds, it could
Yeah.
be, there doesn't make sense. But if the
Hmm.
legislation is there to tackle those frauds, then it's great. Then it's 100%. That's what I'm saying. So we are moving towards adoption. We have adopted blockchain technology, which is the beautiful part of it. The other pieces are subsets. They're very small pieces: NFTs,
When do you think
cryptocurrency.
government will actually, specifically talking India specific, when do you see in the future that the government will actually make a regulatory body around it?
No, see, I can't comment on behalf of the government, of course, but I think they've already, in this budget, they came up with the they spoke about CBDC at length, that they're going to launch a central bank digital currency. They also
Hmm.
spoke about the 30% tax. So of course they are thinking on it, and I'm sure they're going to launch CBDC very soon. When the CBDC gets launched, it's going to come up with its own parameters. And they also spoke about the 30% tax, so which basically also means they're thinking on that. So I think in the next budget there should be something which should be deeper than what they spoke in this budget, which is great, because they're going to end up because look, government, the end goal is to safeguard citizens from fraud. That's how I look at
Oh.
it. And once they are able to address it, once they address it, then it's going to become mainstream. And until it becomes mainstream, what is the technology built for? It's, I mean, like, we are building a blockchain. I am not building it just for the 1% wealthy people. No, that's not the goal. That's not the goal for any technology entrepreneur. We are building it for the 99%, who can basically get access to technology and solve their social problems, get them access to banking, give them access to financial inclusion. That's why we are building, and that's what most technology entrepreneurs dream of, and
But you
that's why
know,
they build
this is
products.
so inspiring because whenever we've talked in the longest conversation we have, that you always mention the fact that everyone has to adopt. And I think this is something that all entrepreneurs should take inspiration from, is that generally entrepreneurs are from tier B or metropolitans. So they think that the world around them is it. But India, the 99% of India is actually, as you mentioned, the bottom 1 billion. And true, if we solve their problem, which I'm sure Fiverr will do. We are going to go on a crazy level. But I was reading one, I think there was an interview from Kunal Shah, right? He said that India, his concern with India was that we are moving towards capitalism, but our blood is still of socialism. So there are a lot of clashes, right? So do you think this will affect the acceptance of this technology? Because abhi, what I can see, there are some people who are absolutely in love with it. There are some people who absolutely negate the technology कि यार ये कुछ नहीं है, ये बकवास है. Why? Because they come from a point कि they are scared of not knowing things. They are scared कि यार पूरी दुनिया change हो रही है. Like my dadaji still he used to hate his mobile phone. He could not accept the fact कि आप internet में बात करते हो, you don't need to write letters. A major shift for them, which I think all of us are going to face. So what would be your advice to them कि जो पूरा आ रहा है, who are just negating कि नहीं ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, सब normal रहेगा. What would be your advice to them?
So I'll share an incident with you. I got hold on the internet of the New York Times back in 1991. If you read New York Times in 1991, the cover page said there is a new fad in the market called the internet, in quotes.
Wow.
And now you know what internet did to the whole world. So people who adopted internet in 1990s, great. People who did not adopt in 2000, they were forced to adopt because they had no choice, right? Because there was not inertia. Okay, let's talk about Facebook. I don't know how many people wanted to use Facebook back in 2008, right? But after 2010, 11, 12, and right now everybody's on Instagram. We all know it. So basically technology takes time to be adopted. There are early adopters and then there are late adopters, and there's nothing wrong with it because there's inertia around it. But look, this technology is here to stay. Blockchain is here to stay. There is no doubt about it. So many of the world pioneers have already adopted it. Governments have started to adopt it. Family offices have started to adopt it. Fortune 500s have started to adopt it. So the adoption is going to happen, but it's going to take time. It's going to take its own sweet time. Some are going to be early adopters, some are going to negate, and in the end they're going to adopt it after 2-3 years, 5 years maybe. And the good thing is that we are the first movers. We are still the early adopters and first movers, so it's good that we're going to reap some benefits out of it. So I would encourage all entrepreneurs to adopt it early. Otherwise they will have no choice but to adopt it, because right now also the biggest problem is that the ease of use is a big problem. So right now people don't so look, the reason people like Instagram or Facebook right now is you don't know what's going at the back end. If you send me a message, I reply to the message, you only see that messages, but you don't know the technology, the complex technology behind the what's going on, because it's been in existence. Web 2 has been in existence for a long time. With Web3 blockchain, it's new right now. It's not new. It's still been more than 10, 15 years, but still new, meaning relatively new. So people still don't understand the technology. That's the reason they negate it. And it's the job of the entrepreneurs who are currently in Web3 to make it simplified. So we have launched, for instance, a digital blockchain university to train kids in their 20s about Rust, Substrate, languages which are used to code in Web3. So once we train them, once they learn about it, then there's going to encourage adoption, and people are going to end up, building decentralized protocols.
Where can they find this on the internet? Because I'm sure a lot of listeners would be really interested in this. Where can they find this on the internet to learn about blockchain?
We are currently in the, we are currently working with a handful of universities, and we'll be launching it digitally very, very soon. So you're going to, if you keep following us on, Twitter on Fire, Firechain is our Twitter handle, or Instagram, Firechain is the same. So you'll find all the updates. We post all the updates regularly, but you'll find a lot of stuff regarding, we've already created courses and we are launching them with some partner universities across the world, not just India.
Wow.
Because we want to encourage adoption of blockchain, and I think it's our job to make it simpler. Because if we don't do it, then people are not going to adopt it. And unless people adopt it, the technology is useless, to be honest. The technology is only good if it's adopted by people. And I think it's our job to make it simpler for humans to adopt it. So we are doing our part.
This is really interesting. So Pratik, if somebody is listening and he is very optimistic with the blockchain, he's enthusiastic, he's young, he's full of energy, but he's directionless, that how to work in this, how to get a job in this, or maybe how to connect with people in this, what would be your advice to him?
I think the first thing here is going to be self-learning. first start reading and learning about blockchain on the internet. There's a lot of information on YouTube. Follow good people on Twitter. I think Twitter has become a great educational medium. Follow people on Twitter, follow people on LinkedIn, people who are running blockchain startups. Learn from learn from the stuff that they've built. Go through their website. Just learn about technology. Just learn how it actually works and why is it so beautiful. Just first, you need to be convinced yourself that yeah, it is the future. See, I know it's the future, but you need to be convinced it's the future. Once you're convinced it's the future, then you probably, I think, I personally feel that LinkedIn has been, social media has been a great tool to network with people. I think you should hang out in the right circles. So same with stock markets, right? If I were to invest in a stock, so most of my friends are all investing in stocks, so it becomes easier if 10 of your friends are investing, so you can seek advice. You can say, oh, I'm investing in this stock, what are your thoughts about it? And then of course the decision is yours. So I think the same in this space. If you hang out, once you basically have a know-how of the technology, once you understand and you believe that it's the future, then be in the right circles. So there are a lot of amazing circles in India now, and where people are talking about Web3. In fact, I was at World Economic Forum in Davos this year. We were title sponsors of the Goal 17 Partners Lounge, and I saw so many people who were talking about Web3. In fact, as I entered Davos, it said Web3 is here. So like people know it's the technology of the future. People know it's going to change lives. But once you learn it, then probably I think the best way to learn is, I think, practicals. I've never believed in theory a lot, to be honest. So learn it on the go, launch a startup, network with the right people, get the right set of mentors and advisors. When you're launching a company, they're going to guide you through your journey. So I think that's the best way to educate yourself.
So three things. Sabse pehla, you need to self-learn. You need to read about it, and just correct me if I'm wrong. Just don't go with the hype of it. You need to believe in it. That is going to, and that will come. That conviction will come when you self-learn about it, right?
Correct.
And third thing, which is very interesting, the circle, the people you surround yourself with. That's very important.
Yeah.
Now, you have gotten an amazing circle. I think all the young successful entrepreneurs, you, Ritesh Irwal, Nikhil Kamath, I know, like you mentioned, all of you hang out, you chill out together, and many more, right? So, what would you say? Because you are in that circle, right? You being one of them. What would you say that what is what is that one thing that is different in all of you compared to any random person of your age? What is that one difference or one commonality you find among that entire circle?
I think I would say, one thing is a commitment to change the world for the better, like a commitment to work and change the world by building technology products. And the second is help everybody grow, because you can't grow alone. Like you need a community with you who grows, and you need to be a part of the community which grows together. So I think, I mean, if most of my friends, if you meet anybody, right? So if you ask them, the first thing they will ask you is, how can I help? So I think that one line really sums up how the individual or how the human thinks about. Most of the people go and meet a person thinking, oh, I'm going to get this from him or her. If you have that mindset, I think it's very hard to be in the right circles, because then people know that, you're not a serious person, right? But if you're ready to help in whatever capacity, every human has an ability to help, and every human has an ability to give something to the other. So if you have that kind of mindset, I think it really helps. And then of course the entrepreneur circuit is growing in India very rapidly. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming in the scenes. So as you keep growing in your journey, because as you launch your startup, slowly and slowly and slowly, you'll continue to grow. And once you grow, you'll end up meeting a lot of the most amazing and inspiring people on the planet, because when you grow a startup, you need help from most of the amazing people who've already done it before. So when you go to them, you get your advisory and mentor board, that, as I mentioned, when you get that, you get into that circle. So it's step by step. So that's why I say, the earlier you launch a startup in your life, it's better for you. So if you launch it at 16, better than launching at 20. If you're 25, better to launch it because a lot of people, what they think, oh, I'm going to go to a school, I'm going to go to a college, and then I'm going to get a job, I'm going to work for 10 years, then I'm going to save some money by the time I'm 40, and then I'm going to launch a startup. So what I say, if you were to launch a startup, launch it right now. Like, just don't think about it. because if you have an idea and you think it's going to work, just launch it, because you will meet so many amazing people along the journey who will simplify stuff for you. You don't need, let me put it this way, you don't need to do everything yourself. You will never be able to build a $1 billion company impacting 1 billion people by yourself. You will need a lot of amazing people with you to do it for you and with you. So, and you will find those people on the journey. So just basically it's like going in the ocean and just jumping, and when you jump, you will just go deeper and deeper and deeper, and the deeper you go, the more excitement you have, the more amazing people you meet, and the journey is very, very, very beautiful. So that's all I can say.
It's really
Rewarding.
beautiful. And yeah, you're right about the mindset, because yeah, I think this common question, if somebody asks me this, how can I help? That automatically gives him such a like कुछ करते हैं आज, कि let's do something, let's make something together. So अब जैसे you mentioned that start as early as possible. You, while you were studying, you started off, right? And that too when you were in MBA. I'm sure things must have been going on much before that.
Yeah,
but how did you?
When I was 16. So yeah.
Yeah. So how do you develop this mindset? Because at the age of 16, I think या तो Pokemon खेल रहे थे या फिर there were heartbreaks that were going on, right? So how were you different? Did your family, is your family thing of a business minded family? How were you different from others?
So no, I don't no, it wasn't family. In fact, my family was not very keen. They want, so basically my family, when I was growing up, they told me, either you go to an IIT and then go to an IIM and get a job, or you become an IAS officer and get into civil services.
You were good in studies?
Sorry?
You were good in studies as a student?
Yeah. I mean, decently well, yeah. So I basically got pretty good grades, because I think I was able to cram in the end and get some grades. But anyways, that's a different story. But yeah, I was good at studies, so that made them think that I should basically first crack an IIT, then crack an IIM, study at a good college, and then get a job. So that was their mindset. So family I didn't come from a business family. In fact, I came from a humble background and I built everything myself. So but the reason I did it was because I really felt inspired to change the world at a very young age. So even if I'm playing Pokemon, the way my mind will think, how can I build this app so that I'm not only a player but I'm also a creator, and then I make money while I'm having fun. So if you basically if I like, for instance, if I'm crazy about cars, for instance, example. So I would not think, okay, let me buy this car. I'll think, how can I own a car rental showroom, for instance, and make money while I'm having fun? So the way my mind thinks it, I would link business to passion every time I think of an idea. And I would basically link profits to purpose every time. So my purpose of the life is to basically solve the problem of hunger. So I would always say, how can I link business to it? How can I basically create a revenue model around it, which basically makes sure that I'm solving a problem at the same time I'm also, making money. So that's the mindset I think if young people can have, it really helps. So rather than just playing, if you can think, I can monetize my playing time. I mean, of course, in metaverse, you can do play to earn and all those. We are already doing all of that. So if you have that mindset, it helps. But as I was telling you, I came from a humble background. All my journey has been that I was basically very inspired by Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Al Gore. I had a lot of inspirations growing up. People who basically I thought changed the world, the way the world looks at things. So the way you currently look at things have completely changed since Facebook came in. So of course, Zuckerberg really changed the way you look at social media. Now with Web3 coming in, of course, it's going to 10 years from now, when we'll be having this conversation, it wouldn't be the same. It probably be on a metaverse. It'll be easier.
100%, yeah.
It wouldn't be probably Zoom. It'll be something else. So, so I personally, was very inspired by technology entrepreneurs who've actually built technology for humanity, give them access to something they never saw before, and then made money. So that's my journey that I started being on. So all my startups, were trying to use technology for the betterment of humanity and trying to solve social problems around the fifth industrial revolution, and trying to prove the thesis that you can actually make more money if you do good to the world, and then inspire other entrepreneurs to also follow the same path.
Pratik, honestly speaking, the things that I have taken out from the entire conversation, right? Of course, we understood blockchain, all those things, but two things. First, your mindset, that how, when you even, spending time something, how to monetize it and make it even better. And second, your will to work for humanity. I think that is truly, truly inspiring, because there are very few people who actually work for the bottom billion. Everyone says that, but in my experience, really, very few people. And talking to you, I can very clearly say that you definitely always want to work for them. So, Pratik, I want to leave you one last question, right? And this is a thinker. Question ye hai, is that what is that one thing that you believe, but everyone disagrees with you in the blockchain space? What is that one thing जो आप मानते हो, but other people they might disagree with you or they disagree with you? One thing that you believe.
So there are a lot of things actually, but one thing that I believe is any entrepreneur. So right now we're in the middle of a bear market, and most of the companies will say, most of the people are thinking that the market has crashed, it's going to go down. I say this is the best time to prove your metal. This is the best time to basically, okay, one thing that people might disagree with me, and then I am a strong believer of any entrepreneur who ends up building a product starting now in the next bull run, whenever it comes 2024, 2025, if you build for 2 years, using your heart, putting your mind, heart, and soul behind a product for humanity using blockchain and Web3. If you do that starting now, I can promise you in 2024 to 2025, you would have built $1 billion company impacting 1 billion people. That's all I can say. And most of the people will disagree, but I will still stick to my statement and let's speak in 2025 around the same thing.
100%, 100%. 2025, we're going to have this conversation again. And if you want to get in touch with Pratik, and because his course is also coming out, his entire university is coming up with a lot of tie-ups, follow him on Twitter, follow Fiverr on Twitter, and what other links are there?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You can write to me on LinkedIn. The name is Pratik Gauri. Then you can go to Fire Chain. So it's 5IRE chain, Fire Chain, again, Fifth Industrial Revolution chain, on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Yeah, happy to either my team or I would definitely answer any questions. We also have Fire Capital, by the way, which is a venture capital fund that we have launched to fund entrepreneurs who are working at the intersection of blockchain and sustainability. We are incubating and funding about 2 projects almost every 10 days. And that's why I say we will be funding a lot of projects in the bear market for the next, whenever till the time it lasts, because we know that these projects are going to become the next unicorns, the next $1 billion companies impacting 1 billion people. That's our final goal. So if you are an entrepreneur working at the intersection of blockchain and sustainability, looking for funds, please reach out. We will be happy to evaluate your project. I have a team of Fire Capital who does that for us.
Wow. Thank you so much, Pratik. I can assure you a lot of people are going to reach out to you by the a lot of people are interested in this, and you actually have been like a trailblazer. And thank you so much for giving us your time. It was a pleasure to have you. I hope you had a fun time with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Harsh. It was a pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for having me.